the first book in 1997, If Aristotle Ran General Motors.
Oh,
And then when the Potter books came out, I wasn't even going to read them because I thought they were just books for little kids. So a young philosopher called me up, and maybe he emailed me first, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing a book called Harry Potter and Philosophy, and I would love you to write an essay for the book. And if you agree, your essay will be the lead essay for the book." And I wrote him back and I said, "Well, look, my kids are grown or older now. They're not, I don't have little kids in the house. We haven't been reading these stories." And he wrote me back. He said, "They're not just for kids, they're for everybody." And this went on for weeks. He would call me, he would write me. He got his favorite professor, who was one of my graduate students, to call me and write me. And I said, "Guys, I'll read the first Potter book. And if I like it, I'll write something. And if I don't, you guys will leave me alone about this, okay? Because we've tried." Okay, that's fine. Yeah, read the first book. I ended up reading all the books that were out at that time, the first 4 or 5, 6 times through, cover to cover. People didn't realize how much philosophy there was in these books. She was trained as a classics major, JK Rowling, and she was using Aristotle, and she was using. So I ended up writing an article for the guy's book called "The Courageous Harry Potter." Aristotle thought the most important virtue is courage, because without it, you won't use any of the others under pressure. Um, and so that's the main theme of the stories. The scared little kid stands up to the main threat of his day. How does he develop that courage? Well, so I couldn't stop writing after the article. I ended up writing a whole book called It was first of all called Harry Potter and the Meaning of Life. But the main business editor at Doubleday, an agent I had, sent it to him because she knew he loved Harry Potter. He'd been reading the stories to his grandchildren. And he calls me up. I'm in the car with my family on vacation or something. I have to pull over to the side of the road. He said, "This is the greatest book on leadership I've ever seen. We've always loved your book, If Aristotle Ran General Motors. Can you retitle it something like that and put in some business stuff, and we'll do it?" And it was Doubleday Currency Publishers. So I said, "Okay." So it became If Harry Potter Ran General Electric.
yeah. I mean, you use it as well. The 5 oh, I don't know what to call them, the 5 tips or whatever that
Yeah.
started with courage. That
Yeah.
came from Harry Potter, and you've used that against, other
That's
areas.
right. That's right. I use that in Plato's Lemonade Stand too, because Harry had this way of developing, building courage. Because people say, if I don't have courage, how do I get it? Well, there's Harry Potter. He does certain things, right? Like he surrounds himself with support. So he never just confronts something totally by himself. He's got Ron, he's got Hermione, he's got Hagrid, he's got all these friends, right? Who are kind of helping him out. And usually when he goes into danger, he thinks about what's at stake. And it's usually saving the life of one of his friends. And so he focuses on that, not on the risk, not on the danger. And there are all these little steps, little things that Harry Potter does throughout the stories that any of us can do to build that. And finally, we discover fear is a feeling, courage is a choice.
Yeah.
Heroic people will always say, "Well, I didn't feel like a hero." Courageous people will always say, "Well, I didn't feel courageous." That's because that's not a feeling. The fear is the feeling. The courage is the choice. And that's a choice you can make when you've done some other things in your life right. It really helps you do that,
Yeah.
no matter what the risk might be.
Yeah. I mean, that is that thing of fear being something that you imagine. It's not a tangible thing. It's a feeling. So
That's right. It's our imagination's out of control. The tail wags the dog, as the old saying goes. The imagination makes us fear things. Pascal said that people die, 1,000 deaths. People fear death all through their lives. And as Socrates said, it may not be the kind of thing you should fear in the first place. Why are you making yourself so miserable? That applies to so much in life. Oh, I've got to stand up in front of a lot of people and give a speech. You make yourself miserable for the month ahead of time, and then it ends up being an enjoyable experience.
yeah. But that whole thing about courage and everything around that, it reminded me of the Wizard of Oz. When you go back to that story, it's a very similar thing, isn't it, with Dorothy? And it's that whole kind of hero's journey of.
It is. And what I love about, like, the Wizard of Oz, she's not by herself.
No.
She starts off by herself, but pretty soon she's got a Ron and a Hermione and a Hagrid and a Dumbledore. She's got a team, and that's some of the greatest human literature has been about the power of partnership. The Iliad, which it's a book about a war, and it's been called the greatest anti-war book ever written. But it's also a book about the power of partnership, because Agamemnon and Achilles, Agamemnon the leader and Achilles the great warrior, are supposed to be partners in their a war fight with Troy, but they forget what's important. They forget their partnership. It comes unraveled, and bad things happen for the rest of the book. Uh, when good things do happen in the book, it's because of other people who did not forget their partnerships. I mean, you get books like The Three Musketeers, it's all about partnerships.
Yeah.
My biggest surprise in a novel was Dracula. Dracula, the original, is about the power of partnership. Here's this evil who has prepared for centuries to be invincible, and yet it's a group of people, not a single person, but a group of people coming together are able to defeat this menace. So many stories in our literary treasure trove are about the power of partnership. So if we're facing something that is scary, gather a team, gather some partners. It makes everything easier.
Yeah. Yeah.